Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Just ahead of one of our guests of the day, Jeff Paterson, a reminder that Donnie and Dolly is presented by Able Auctions. If you have assets, inventory, or equipment that you need to sell, email sales@ableauctions.ca. Should also mention that our inbox is brought to you by Delaney's OK Tire in Langley, in business for over 20 plus years. OK Tire is Canadian owned and operated from coast to coast. Clayton and Brett Delaney are second-generation owners. And have you been there yet?
I'm going.
And they handle all the major tire brands as well as custom wheels and suspension. They do brakes, leveling kits, and lifts and full mechanical services. Visit them at 19863 Fraser Highway in Langley, right beside
the big chair.
The big chair.
The big chair. The big red chair.
The big red chair.
Yep.
Isn't that a kid's show? Delaney's OK Tire in Langley inbox as we officially enter 2021. Our first guest via Zoom, we hope, Jeff Paterson of Sekeres and Price. How are you, sir?
Oh, boy.
I'm good. I feel like I'm on the cutting edge of something special here. And
technology.
Speaking of something special, it was great to see you guys and Ryan and Kelsey on Saturday night. Great to be back with you. Good to have you guys back on the air after your summer hiatus.
Great to see yourself and Shannon as well. Hey, how concerned, Jeff, should Canuck fans be that Paterson and Hughes aren't signed yet?
Yeah, I mean, we're into September now. Like, I think I allowed myself through the month of August to recognize that the hockey world rarely slows down. So if GMs and agents wanted to take a little bit of a break, that there was still time. But it's impossible to ignore. Like 2 weeks and 1 day, they are on the ice, the 23rd of September out in Abbotsford. And obviously the players are expected in camp before then for physicals and weigh-ins and those types of things. So, really we're looking at 2 weeks until the start of training camp. Now, Brock Besser missed training camp in Victoria a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Signed on the night of the first preseason game, got into camp midway through, and had his best statistical month of the season the first month out of the gate. These guys are so well conditioned. I'm sure that Paterson and Hughes are skating on their own, continuing to work out. But look, when you think of Elias Pettersson, he missed half the games last season, more than half the games. And there is some question about the recovery of the wrist. And that's his moneymaker, the way he shoots the puck and his playmaking abilities. So, best case scenario is that he gets a contract done, he gets to Vancouver, settles in, and hits the ground running, because it's impossible to ignore the fact that these guys start the season on a 6-game road trip. And we know the general manager himself has set the table and set the stakes. He's talked about this being a playoff team. Well, they don't want to stumble out of the gates on a 6-game road trip. And certainly it would be made a lot easier if they were at full staff and they had their star players in Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes ready to roll from day one. So, there is time, but it's impossible to ignore the fact that that time window is shrinking every day now. So, I'm not searching for the panic button, but I think that it's fair for Canuck fans to, show some mild concern at the very least that it still sounds like things are relatively quiet. Now, maybe there are some discussions going on behind the scenes. I hope that that's going to pick up here, because the best thing for Hughes and Paterson and the hockey club is to find that common ground and get everybody on the same page, especially with the amount of new faces that are coming into this organization this year. I'm sure Travis Green, and I heard him yesterday on your show, I'm sure he wants training camp to be as smooth and seamless as possible.
Jeff, it's the subject of our poll question today, but what's a realistic expectation for Vasily Podkolzin this coming season as he lands on Vancouver soil this week?
Yeah, it's tough to sort of peg a point projection, but I mean, I've spent a little bit of the offseason trying to figure that out. This isn't a guy that put up big numbers in the KHL. I think he had 11 points in 35 regular season games. What got people excited was he matched that point total. He had 11 points in 16 playoff games. So, the stakes are higher in the postseason, and it seemed like he elevated his game. And that's kind of how he profiles, right? Is a big body that shows up, competes hard, but has enough skill to get him through. And so I think people are going to look at Nils Höglander and say, well, this was a second-round pick, and he stepped in and was basically a half a point a game guy. He had his 27 points in 56 games. You'd expect more from Podkolzin. I point this out, that Bo Horvat had 25 points in his rookie season. It's not easy to put up points in the National Hockey League. And so, Horvat went from 25 to 40, and now there's no looking back when you look at the way that he produces. I think for Nils Höglander, it's important to remember what he's seen from the NHL. And he was terrific from day one in training camp. He earned that spot. They put him in the top 6 role, and he was up to the challenge on day one of training camp, and there was no looking back. And so, based on the work ethic and the hustle and everything else, the fact that he had 27 points in his 56 games, not a huge surprise. But Nils Höglander really hasn't seen the NHL, right? He played in the Canadian division. He hasn't played in front of fans yet. He hasn't had to go and play in some of the tougher buildings around the National Hockey League. I'm sure that excites him. But in some ways, he and Podkolzin are going through this together. It's almost like Höglander is going to get a second rookie season to go to Chicago and New York and into Colorado and some of these buildings that he hasn't played in yet. And so he's going to explore that part of the NHL, and Podkolzin is going to be right there along for the ride. If you project Höglander's season last year over 82 games, he was sort of in that 40-point range. Man, if Podkolzin could get anywhere close to 40 points as a rookie, because I think in my world, he's starting as a third-line guy. I think that's the right spot for him. I think it allows him to get his feet wet. I think it will allow him to sort of use the tools in his calling card to have the most success. And I think the fact that they brought in Connor Garland and Jason Dickinson, and you've got Höglander here now, it represents so much more talent up front. I'm legitimately excited to see the Canucks forward group this year, and I think Canuck fans should be. And just listening to Travis yesterday, I get the sense too, this is the most talent that he's had to work with up front. There's no question. And so it's not a knock on Podkolzin if he is a third-line guy to start the season. One of the reasons Höglander got the second-line spot last year was because they didn't have any of their options, and they had no appetite to go back down that road with Louis Eriksson. And we know that Jake Virtanen, it didn't pan out for him and other guys. So Höglander, it was good timing on his part to land here where they didn't have the depth. They've added significantly to their depth, and so Podkolzin's part of that, and it's not a knock in any way if this guy winds up starting the season on the third line. I think he can really help the Canucks in a third-line capacity.
Jeff, I'm really looking forward to the battle between Rathbone and Juolevi. Both players, from what I've been told, had great summers. Conditioning-wise, they're ready. They're saying all the right things. What do you see panning out there, Rathbone and Juolevi? Because, look, Juolevi, Jeff, you just don't get 500 chances at the National League Hockey League level, and Jake Virtanen just found that out. What do you expect there happening, Rathbone, Juolevi?
Well, Rathbone looked NHL ready, and so
skating-wise,
I think the organization and the fan base, they want to see this guy succeed. And so I've got him penciled in as my third pairing left side guy, but Olli Juolevi, I thought it was a smart play on his part and his agent's part to basically take a league minimum salary on a 1-year deal. Every dollar counts, and if it comes down to making those kind of decisions when the Canucks are right up against it, having a guy at league minimum, that may help him stick around and stay on the big league roster. So, I'm sure he's going to come to camp. I'm sure he's going to be a little more confident, having had some NHL experience. We know that when he played, it was limited and in a sheltered role, but he can say that he's played in the NHL now. And so he can use and draw that experience. But Rathbone just looks the part and did when he stepped in. It was so seamless for him last year. And I have to think that Rathbone's got the inside track, but a guy like Brad Hunt, talk about a player with experience.
Yes.
And, I've seen people that have talked to him and quotes there, he's not coming to be depth in Abbotsford. This guy still thinks that he can play in the NHL. He's got an absolute bomb of a shot, and, we'll see if there's an opportunity for him to put that on display. But, guys, we say this every year, training camp's going to be fun because there's going to be battles. A lot of years you say it, but there aren't really the battles that we anticipate. Yeah. I think this year it's different. I think when you look at the depth guys that they signed up front, Abbotsford should be a good team. I think it was a smart play on the part of the organization to go out and get some quality veterans, not only to insulate the other guys on the farm, but just to sort of make a first impression that this Abbotsford team is going to be successful on the ice. That'll help them in the box office. It'll put people in the seats, but it will also help with the depth of the big league team as well. And I think Brad Hunt is one of those kinds of players that as a tweener. He's played in the NHL. Is there room for him on the big league roster? He's a guy that I think could come to camp and could turn some heads that way, and he's got the experience. But I still think it's Jack Rathbone's job to lose guys on that left side. But there are so many questions where I said a moment ago how excited I am, and I am. I'm legitimately excited. I think the Canucks have a top 12 group of forwards that can hold their own. I'm not putting them in the McDavid and Draisaitl class. Don't for a second hear me when I say that. But I think their forward group 1 through 12 certainly stacks up with a lot of teams in the National Hockey League. I'm a big believer in Thatcher Demko. I just, like others, have questions about the defense. And they turned the page on Edler and Nate Schmidt, but I'm not convinced that they've got a whole lot better. And I know Jim Benning talks about Oliver Ekman-Larsson being a top pairing guy. That's on him. And hopefully the change of scenery will allow him to recapture some of his game, but I don't know that he's a top pairing guy. And if he's going to play with Tucker Pullman, the people I talked to in Winnipeg said, hey, Pullman can play in the National Hockey League. There's no question about that. But he's best served as a third pairing guy. Now, all of a sudden, if you're pairing him with OEL, are you looking at as your matchup shutdown pair? If so, I think that, it certainly opens the door to some real questions about how well the Canucks will defend. And as good as Quinn Hughes has been in his limited time in the NHL, it was a disappointing season for him last year. The points still follow him around. He's that talented, but, can he defend? Can he defend against the best players in the National Hockey League? And I think Quinn Hughes has to step up here and show that. And, if he's on a pairing with Travis Hamonic, again, I think Hamonic can play in the NHL, but his best days probably behind him. Can he log 20-plus minutes on a nightly basis in the NHL? Can he provide that insulation for Quinn Hughes that Chris Tanev did so well in Hughes' rookie season? So there's lots of questions about this Canucks defense, and I think some guys are going to have to step up and probably, outplay the expectations that a lot of people have for them if this team is truly going to be successful and meet the expected goal of climbing into a playoff spot in the Pacific Division.
The Zoom worked out really well. You'll be happy to know that, Jeff.
The hair was okay?
The hair looked good. Well, who am I to talk? It looks
really nice.
Excellent. And you can get back to doing what I know you've been doing a lot of this week. You're a big tennis fan, watching what the Canadians are up to in New York. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for this, Jeff.
Jeff, hold on. That's a great fireplace, but we're going to send you an 8x10 portrait of us. Next time it's got to be in the background.
I'll work on that. I'll see.
No, it's coming in the mail. It's coming in the mail. Believe me.
I'll run that by the wife is the interior
No,
designer,
just for our segments, an 8x10 of me and Donnie.
Oh, just for your segment.
Yeah.
No, and Donnie, to your point, tennis has been incredible.
Yes.
The Canadian soccer team playing, football on both sides of the border, baseball play. This is it. To have you guys back, this is the time of the year.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Talk to you next week.
You bet.